Okay.
All right, folks. So, in case you didn't know, my name is Christina Hughes. Um, just wanted to do a little webinar for you on where Power BI meets programmability. A little bit about me. I'm a data and analytics consultant at 3Cloud. I joined back in September, so this is month 3 for me, coming up on month 4. My experience includes implementing and managing enterprise level Power BI instances, training teams on reporting practices, and building templates for scalable analytics. I do co-author a blog, so check out Data on Wheels. You don't need to do the .wordpress, but it does get you there a little bit faster. I'm also on LinkedIn, and yes, that is the correct spelling of my name. It will probably autocorrect for you when you type it in. My grandma always remembers it by Christina. So if that helps you find me later on, um, feel free to reach out and connect. We're going to walk through a little bit of the purpose behind this seminar, as well as some definitions, and then limitations for this are going to be huge to remember because it's a really cool feature that I'm going to show you guys, but there's one major limitation that might knock it off the table for some of you. And then we're going to go through the tools that you need. And then finally, the demo, which I'm hoping will take most of our time today. And then I'll leave some time for questions at the end as well. All right, so the purpose. If you read the little blurb, you might have noticed that we'll be talking about C# today. If you're like me, a typical Power BI developer, you will have run for the hills when you heard the word C#. C# is not something that typically Power BI developers dabble in, and it's not something that's typically paired with report development. The reason why we're going to talk about it today is that enterprise analytics, that is, companies that are massive in size and scale, they require some scalability, automation, and flexibility within their reporting stack that's not found in Power BI by itself. If you're part of a larger organization, you will know this intuitively. The moment that a CEO says they want a report available for every single customer that you have, and that customer list is 150 customers, and they all have slight customizations, it's that internal groan that we all have when we hear these types of things. So this can help you scale up those type of custom solutions that you can't really do within Power BI at the moment. C# can help us actually bridge that gap. So the reason why we're going to use C# is that it has the ability to integrate with existing applications. So today we're going to build like a simple C# application. And actually for the sake of our time, I'm going to go ahead and skip over building the C# application, but I do have a step-by-step walkthrough of that in my blog post on this topic. So I'll point you guys to that at the end. But just wanted to call that out. If you're doing a POC, it's really simple to POC this without building a new, brand new, like complicated C# application. All right, so key definitions here. TOM is the tabular object model. I'm going to call it TOM a lot because that's a lot easier than saying tabular object model. So the TOM itself can be used inside numerous scripting languages to manipulate the data model. In this case, we're going to use C#. TOM itself, if we talk about what the tabular object model means, if you're familiar with Microsoft Analysis Services, you will be very familiar with the tabular object model. What it does is it's essentially a tool that will help you to interact with the different items inside of a Power BI report. For example, within the TOM, you're able to call data models specifically from specific workspaces. You can call different data sources. You can even look at translations. If you're familiar with the tabular editor tool, it's open source, so feel free to check it out if you haven't. What they use in the background is actually the TOM. So pretty cool stuff. I consider the tabular object model one of the greatest things to come out of Power BI, or I should say not Power BI, but to come out of Microsoft using the analysis services in the background to build Power BI. As soon as they opened up that XMLA endpoint, we got the ability to mess with the TOM. So very grateful to Microsoft for doing that. The TIMSIL super fun name, sounds like tinsel, 'tis the season. The tabular object model scripting language. So this can be used inside of SSMS. We're not going to use this for this demo just because it doesn't lend itself well to C# based applications, which is what we're mostly talking about today. I do have another blog post that was written before the one that I'm going to reference in today's demo that does reference using the tinsel to do the same edits we're about to do today in the TOM. So if you wanted to ever update reports from SSMS instead of updating them from the Power BI desktop, the tinsel is a far easier solution to do that with. All right, here is the big disclaimer I have for today. You cannot export the PBIX file from the service once the XMLA endpoint or updates have been made. I'll show you this in the demo, what it looks like. Unfortunately, Microsoft didn't gray out that option, so it's going to look like you can still export it, but you can't. No matter how many times you submit tickets to Microsoft, you cannot export a PBIX file from the online Power BI service once you've touched it with the XMLA endpoint. All right, so tools needed. Just a little tongue-in-cheek here. Don't run away, since you saw C# pop up in that demo. And don't worry too much. I will have all the C# code I used on the blog already. So feel free to reference that later. Keys for this are you're going to need a data source you can edit. I'm going to use Excel because that's easy to edit and pretty accessible for most folks. You'll also need Power BI Desktop. I recommend getting the November update. Obviously, the time of this webinar, November 2021, they just came out with a few new features that are pretty neat, but this will work with anything after 2016 version. The Power BI Premium Workspace, you'll also need. Premium per user workspace will work, but you can't have it with a service principal, and you'll see why. Just for this demo, it will work if you were to reference the documentation and change the script slightly, which again, how to do that's in my additional resources. Feel free to check out some other links to that. We're just not going to go through that in this demo. You'll also need a pro license because obviously you can't publish things from the desktop to premium without the pro license. You'll need .NET 5.0, got a link there to download it, .NET Core, another download, and Visual Studio. You don't need the paid version of Visual Studio. 2019 will work. I'm going to use 2022 in this demo just because it's fun, so why not? All right, demo time. So I'm going to go through a little bit of a case study with you guys. So let's say that you're working either you're with a client or with your own company in kind of like an IDF situation where a client or yourself allows end users to create or delete custom UDFs or user-defined fields on the fly within their application. So let's imagine that they let people add in fields like bananas or apples or description too. They want those fields to be available within the Power BI data models so that when their customers go in and edit reports, they can add these user-defined fields into their existing Power BI reports and not in the desktop tool, which obviously if you are sharing this with outside customers, you don't want them to be downloading your PBIX files and re-uploading all the time because then they would need access to your data sources. So this kind of circumvents that issue and also allows the user experience to be a lot better. All right, so I'm going to exit out of here and we'll start going through the demo. All right, so to start out with, I've got a sample Power BI report that I'm going to go ahead and publish to my premium workspace. So you might notice there's just a few fields in here under a product table. I've got this all lined up inside of an Excel file. I went ahead and made it a table so that it's all easier to pull into Power BI itself. So I'm going to go ahead and publish this up, save our changes like always. And then you'll see when I select this one, it'll just replace this for me. No problemo. See if I can get my little, there we go, green check mark. So now once I come into the service, I've already got this kind of loaded up. You'll notice here is my brand new report. If I go in here, you can see it's the same exact things. and I've got my exact same fields. So I'm going to show you why we need this solution first. So let's say that I am an end user and I go ahead and I add in a new field here, and I'm just going to call it custom one. And we're just going to make it full of a bunch of A's. So if I go A, and then let's do a little neat trick. There we go. Save this up. Once it says saved, I'm going to go ahead and I'll show you in the desktop why you don't need to do this and why it feels like you should just be able to work it this way. So in the desktop now, if I go into transform data, or formerly known as the query editor, and I hit refresh preview, you'll see my custom one shows up here by itself. I didn't have to do anything. It refreshed, it grabbed that extra column. Awesome. I want that column in my report. So if I close and apply, it'll show up in my options for my desktop tool. Now you might be thinking, oh, that's awesome. Maybe what I want to do, oh, it's gonna refresh this. There we go. There we go. There's my custom one. So now in the desktop tool, I want to do the same thing. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to refresh my data set. We'll give it a couple seconds. And just as a heads up too, you don't need a gateway for anything that's saved in OneDrive. So if you've never seen this before, basically you'll put your data credentials in here, you'll have it as a web source, and those credentials will just be your OAuth 2 organization. You can just sign in here. Pretty nifty for stuff like this. But all right, so it refreshed. So when I click edit, I want to see my custom in here. Now, for those of you who are very familiar with report design, you were not expecting it to show up in here. And the reason why this doesn't work is because Power BI has saved in the back that TOM, the tabular object model. And the tabular object model doesn't care that you have a select star from that table. It only knows about 3 columns, and it's only going to pull in those 3 columns. So how do we fix this for our end users? Well, this is where the fun part comes in. So to start out with, like I said, you do need a premium capacity backed workspace. So look for this diamond and you know you're good to go. So to grab my XMLA endpoint, you can come over here into, let's see, where did it go? It should just be in the premium. There it is, just took a little second. Under settings and then under this premium tab, you'll see this workspace connection. This is technically your XMLA endpoint. So I'm gonna go ahead and copy this and come over to my handy dandy C# script. So let's make this full screen. I'll zoom in a little bit. We're going to walk through some of these steps, but I'm not going to recreate it one for one just because that's going to be a little bit crazy. So to start out with, you can see that this right here is my XMLA endpoint. So if I paste that in there, you'll notice nothing really changed, but essentially what it's doing is it's taking this Power BI API and then it's just grabbing your workspace name so it knows where to go. So to start out with, we're going to set our workspace connection up. I'm going to give it a connect string with my data source to that workspace connection. From there, we've got that connection to the workspace. And then I want to go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and grab all of my data sets in that workspace and display their names. So within the TOM, like I had said, there's going to be a few key things to remember. So you'll notice up here, I'm using the system, and then I'm also using Microsoft Analysis Services Tabular. So that is going to be the actual library of sorts that I'm going to pull from. But you'll also need a couple extra NuGet packages. So I'll just call that out before we get too deep into the woods here. So underneath tools, to see if you've got the right NuGet packages, you can go to NuGet Manager, manage NuGet packages for solution. Again, I do go through all this really slowly in a lot of detail in the blog post, so feel free to check that out. You'll see in here, we've got Microsoft Analysis Services. yeah, these two. I'm not going to read it all out, but you'll need these two NuGet packages to do what we're about to do. So you can see here it's referencing the Microsoft Analysis Services. We'll need those libraries to get to the model itself, to get to that TOM. So if I come back over here, part of this TOM is going to be accessing our databases. So databases, it's a little bit confusing, right? So they're going to change a couple of the names in the script. So databases means data sets in this case. So we've got data set that we're going to try and grab the every single database ID, the name, and the compatibility level. One call out, the compatibility level needs to be above, I think it's 1500, which if you, again, have anything within, I think it's the last 2 years, you're going to be good to go on this front. If you've got reports older than that, just pull them down, refresh them in a newer version, and then push it back up. And then I want to grab the last time that this data set got updated as well. So I'm going to do a couple things here. We're going to grab that. So let me go ahead and comment out the rest of this for now. Scroll down. There's a lot in here, so bear with me. There we go. All right. So we're going to run this, and you'll see the first sign of why I said you couldn't use, let's see. Oh, hang on. I did not like that I got rid of these. So let me go ahead and I'll add these back in for now, and we'll just focus on the top part of the script. So if we've got the data sets, then next I've just got it looking at a specific data set, and I'll show you how to grab that ID from this list. And then from that specific data set, I want to go ahead and list out all of my tables, all my columns, and all my measures, just so I know what I'm working with. So I'll go ahead and I'll run this again. Let's see, I guess it's not going well here. Hang on, already contains. Huh. This is what I get for testing it before. All right, so you'll notice that what pops up now is a little pick an account. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my 3Cloud account because that's where I've got my workspace. And then I'll drag this over and you can see our results. So to start out with, like I said, it's going to give me my data set ID and the name, the compatibility level, and the last time that it got updated. Pretty neat. There's a lot you could add in here. Obviously, I'm just doing a little bit of a demo here. So to start out with, you'll notice I've got my TOM and XMLA POC. It's got a compatibility level above 1500, and I last updated it a couple months ago. So if I look at this one, you can see it's got my ID in here. That ID is used in this script right here. So I'm calling it out specifically by ID. You can also do it by name. I think it's a little bit more precise to use the ID. You'll also notice in the service, if you're in here and you click on your data set, that ID is right here after data sets. So you get data sets, and then that's my little ID right there. So moving on, we've got a bunch of tables in here. I went ahead and added in to our script if this table is hidden or not. This is where you might have heard before that Power BI makes date tables in the background. It definitely does. You can see it made a date table and a local date table for me, and they're both hidden in the background, but if I look at my Power BI report, that's what goes into this little date hierarchy. So kind of neat. It means you can see everything that's going into a given report. You can also see all of our columns. I've got modified date, description, and then I have it listing out my columns twice just in case I add or delete any columns. I want to see it again. So you can exit out of that and let's get to the fun stuff. So once I've got my tables, I'm going to go ahead and add in my custom column to start out with. So go in here. We don't need this part. because we already have that. So this is what I get for testing in advance, right? Having to delete stuff out so I can try it again. It is pretty neat. You do get the ability to delete columns ad hoc, and you can delete measures ad hoc. Pretty neat stuff. So for now, let's go ahead and add in our column if it doesn't exist. So our custom column is going to be custom one, right? So we're going to check and see if custom one exists. All right, if it does, I want it to go ahead and tell me that the column exists, and then I'm going to remove it so that I can add it again. And then we're going to call it custom one, and then I want it to pull custom one. So here is actually where you can rename a column. It's pretty neat. So like, let's say I wanted to call it something else like apples. I can tell it to look for custom one in my source and then rename it in the report as apples. For the sake of our consistency, I'm just going to keep it as custom one. And then we've got our else path, which is if the column doesn't exist, just go ahead and add it. Again, I'm going to change all this to custom one. Make sure all that works. Perfect. Okay. And then we're going to scroll down to the bottom here. And I'm going to list out my columns again, list out my measures again. And then we're going to do a refresh. Now, for the sake of argument, I'm going to go ahead and undo this line. Now, this line is super important, and I'll show you why when I run this. So if I run this again, let's see. It's not having a good time. We'll run this one. Make sure it goes through everything like we want. So you'll notice it didn't add in my new column. I think that's because I ended up having that issue. So you know what? I'm going to reopen my solution real quick, and we're going to go through this again. Did not make the proper sacrifices, I suppose, to our demo gods here. Let's see. There we go. All right. So let's go back up here. You'll notice it's the same model. I've just been testing this one. Got the same script there. And then uncomment out this guy. Do a custom one again. All right. And then we'll try commenting that out again. All right, so it looks like it's being, I'm not entirely sure what's going on with our script here. Saying something about, so we're gonna try and uncomment all of this out. It's gonna do some checking to see if some columns and measures exist and maybe add in a special measure. I'm gonna keep translations out of this for now. All right, says no issues found. Let's try again. All right, just is a program. All right. So it is not a fan. It just keeps giving me this error message. Sorry guys, not a C# Pro. Let's see. Maybe if I just rename it. I wonder if it's just having a little problem. It's one entry. Sorry about that, guys. It was just working last night. More than one entry. Huh. All right, well, back to the handy dandy blog post. Let's see if I can find the script again. See if I did something wrong here. Let's try this. When all else fails, go back to your last working demo, right? Nope, it's saying it still has more than one entry. Huh. Try closing it and opening it again. Already contains a definition for program. Namespace. Okay, let's try POC. See if that fixes our problem here. Live debugging, nothing like it. It's more than one entry point defined. All right, let me see. Browse. Ideally, what happens here is it just adds the column in, but I'm having some C# errors. Sorry about that, guys. What I might need to do is actually make that new C# program. Let's see. We've got, what, half hour? I'll leave some time for questions. Well, let's try walking through it. All right, don't save. So you get do the pleasure of actually walking through the demo I've set up in my blog. So I think we can do this. Let's go ahead and go here. And we're just gonna do a new project. Let's see. And then what I want to do is a console application. Click next. And we're going to call this Tom testing 5. Right. And I don't want it to go here. I want it to go in my 3Cloud account. We're just going to dump it into C#. There we go. All right, next. Do 5. Great. Woohoo. All right, we have a brand new one. Exciting. All right, so I'm going to go under this program and let's go ahead and knock this out. Under program. See, we're already in there. Perfect. Alrighty. Now we're going to go to those NuGet packages that I had mentioned before. So if we go under Tools and then under NuGet Package Manager, manage these. And then I'm going to browse. Let's find Microsoft Analysis Services .NET Core. Make that full screen again. Go. So we definitely need this one. All right, and then we need the .NET Core Retail Sky. Okay. Super fun. I think we need another .NET Core Retail. Let's see. The client .NET Core Retail. There we go. Okay. All right, I think we should be good there. So I'm going to close out of this tab, go back to our program. And we're going to go ahead and swap all this out. So I'm actually just going to go after the namespace. I wonder if all I needed to do was put internal. It probably was. All right. Right, and then if I come over here again, just need this guy. Right. Okay, and then I need to put my actual workspace ID in there again. So if I come back over to my settings in here, and we'll go under premium again. We'll wait for that. There we go, copy, paste that in there. Perfect. Okay. see if this will actually run. Ooh, so far so good. Thanks for sticking with me, guys. All right, when in doubt, just rebuild the whole thing. Perfect. Okay, so I'm actually going to open my other one as well because I'm going to steal code from it like any good developer. Let's grab this guy over here. Awesome. Alrighty, back on track. So copy all of this. All right, thanks guys. So when in doubt, rebuild. I think my problem here was I just needed to call this an internal class. It was running into something probably because I've demoed this a few times now. So we'll go ahead and we'll quickly add in our special little column 1 so you guys can see that before I just go ahead and flip it open to questions. I'm going to try and let's see, we might as well make our measure as well. So what this script will do is it also will add a measure if it doesn't already exist. So we're looking again in that exact same table. We're going to check and see if we have a measure. If we do, I have it actually changing the expression of the measure, which you can do. You can actually put your DAX formulas in here. And then I'm also going to have it tell me that that measure existed and it edited it. Otherwise, I'm just going to make it hello world so I can tell the difference, you know, if we edited it or not. From there, we've got listing under columns and measures again for me. Now I will say for the model save changes, I'm not going to go into it because I think it's causing problems, but if you don't have this be your last line, what's going to happen is it'll refresh these and then you still won't see it in the service until you manually hit that refresh on the data set. So this will essentially save your refresh changes, which is huge. So I'm going to go ahead and I'll run this again and hopefully we'll get that same success. Oh, beautiful. Okay. So if we walk through this again, you can kind of see in here, it ran through those tables again. It gave me my columns again. It told me that that custom column I wanted to add didn't exist and neither did my measure. So I went ahead and created that column, added the measure, and then when I call it again, you'll notice now I have custom 1 in my columns list and measures in my test measure list. So let's see this in the service, right? So you guys saw I didn't touch anything in the service, didn't touch anything in the PBIX to publish it. If I come back in here now and I look at my edit, which I will call out, you do need to refresh your browser because you did have it open. But if I go into edit now and boom, you can see in here I've got custom 1, which if I pull it into this table, all A's, and I've got test measure, hello world. Super fun, super simple. And this way, if you have something that you need to edit for your end users, but you don't necessarily want to open the PBX file in the desktop and manually add it in, this is how you can add it. Now, the implications of putting it in C#, like I said before, you can put this into any C# application, right? So this can be a piece of the puzzle for your application that now you have a way to automate these changes. So like in the example I was telling you, what we're planning on doing is essentially plugging and playing in variables that tell us what the new columns need to be, any new measures we need to add for those different customers. That's pretty much our game plan. So pretty cool stuff. Sorry about the delay there, guys. Hopefully that taught you a little bit about troubleshooting live, if nothing else. So there we go. We've got all that going for us. And then I will say as well, just to kind of reiterate, I won't be able to export this now into a PBIX. If you go into File, you'll notice the Download PBIX option is still there for me. But if I hit it, it'll never let me export it. I can see my details, I can try and get help, but it's something that's not currently supported by Microsoft. So just something to keep in mind. All right. Any questions, guys? Thanks for sticking with me through all that.
So that was great. Thank you, Christina. But we actually don't have any questions. So you must have
Oh,
been very
fun.
clear in your explanations.
Oh, awesome. Well, you know what? You guys, let me put this up again. And you know what? I do have another blog post on translations, so feel free to check that out if you're interested. I'm using translations in my example to rename columns. So I've just got it essentially looking in and overwriting the English translation with my own words for things. Pretty fun stuff. I won't go into it because it's gonna be more than 20 minutes, but as a little bonus, feel free to check that out. And I will put my information back up here in case anyone wants to connect. Um, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn, so feel free to reach out to me there, and I'd be happy to answer any follow-up questions that might come up later.
Oh, we did get a very nice comment though. It was that they admire your bravery for coding live and way to power through the hiccups. Thanks for sharing your experience.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, super nice.
Yeah. Sometimes, you just gotta roll with the punches.
Mhm. Well, thank you everyone for joining us, and we will post this webinar recording on the 3Cloud website in a blog, so be sure to check that out as well, and join us for more free webinars. Thank you, Christina.
Thank you.
Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.